Saturday, 5th March, The Gap News This Morning. Broadcasting live from Kuala Lumpur, I'm Ghazali Abdullah. First the headlines. It's official. Penang-Singapore VTL starts March 16. Ericsson asserts that it won DNB 5G contract on merit. Grab loses US $22 billion since Nasdaq listing 3 months ago. Trailer catches fire on NKBE, causing 10-kilometer crawl. Ukraine leader rebukes NATO refusal on no-fly zone. CNN and Bloomberg do halt operations in Russia. And BM secures 45 million ringgit windfall in Petronas sponsorship deal. And now the news in full. The vaccinated travel lane VTL by air between Malaysia and Singapore will be expanded to include the Penang-Singapore route starting March 16. Transport Minister Wee Ka Siong, in a statement Friday, said the governments of Malaysia and Singapore have reached a mutual agreement on the expansion of the VTL initiative. This VTL initiative will allow fully vaccinated travellers between Penang and Singapore, with participating airlines under the VTL not to undergo any quarantine upon arrival, he said. Ericsson had asserted that its 5G contract with Digital Nasional Berhad DNB was won fairly based on its leading and competitive solutions. The Swedish telecommunications giant said it was committed to ensuring that the DNB network becomes a showcase of the best that 5G can deliver in the region. The 5G contract, according to DNB in July 2021, was awarded following the strictest standards of governance as advised and facilitated by EY Consulting, Ericsson said in a statement Friday. DNB had said Ericsson's offer was judged to be the most competitive as it ranked first in all 3 key components of the tender evaluation criteria. Just over 3 months into Grab's Nasdaq listing, the Southeast Asian firm has lost US $22 billion or 92 billion ringgit in value, plunging 63% since its debut in December. Its latest 37% drop Thursday was its biggest sell-off, following a quarterly net loss that nearly doubled from last year, reported Bloomberg. The sell-off recorded about an exchange of 115 million shares and reportedly more than 4 times the average over the last month. It also recorded a US $1.06 billion loss in quarter 4. Earlier, Grab reported its Q4 losses were due to higher spending on incentives for its drivers and customers, as well as non-cash interest costs and expenses related to its public listing. It logged a revenue of US $122 million, a 44% plunge. The traffic heading north of the North Klang Valley Expressway was reported to be congested with a 10-kilometer crawl after a trailer caught fire on kilometer 21.3 on the highway. Speaking to the Vibes, a Plus Highway spokesperson said the incident occurred at approximately 4:18 p.m. Friday afternoon, and it caused a sudden traffic jam from Kota Damansara to Bukit Lanjan. There was no accident or collision. The Class 3 lorry just caught fire on its own. It is believed to be transporting soy sauce, he told the Vibes. Ukraine's president condemns Western leaders for again ruling out the introduction of a no-fly zone over his country. Russia has banned Facebook, and now there are reports it has also blocked access to Twitter and YouTube. Russian attack on Europe's largest nuclear plant was reckless, the US tells an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. By the grace of God, the world narrowly averted a nuclear catastrophe last night, Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield says. Russian forces seized the plant after some buildings were hit by shelling, which Ukraine says led to deaths and injuries. But Russia says there is no safety threat and insists it is untrue that the plant was fired upon. International monitors say no radioactive material was released and the plant is safe. At least 47 people were killed by Russian airstrikes in the northern city of Chernihiv on Thursday, Ukraine says. 3 Russian commanders have been killed after moving closer to the front line, Western officials say. Ukraine's president has condemned Western leaders for repeatedly ruling out the introduction of a no-fly zone over his country. Speaking during a televised address to the Ukrainian people, Volodymyr Zelensky said Western leaders knew Russian aggression against the country was likely to increase. and accused them of granting Vladimir Putin license to continue bombing towns and cities. Earlier on Friday in Brussels, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg described the situation in Ukraine as horrific, but said Allied forces would not move into Ukraine either by land or air. Western officials have argued that a no-fly zone would oblige NATO jets to fire on Russian fighters, potentially sparking World War III. Meanwhile, CNN and Bloomberg News will temporarily suspend their work in Russia. It comes after Putin signed legislation that imposes prison terms of up to 15 years on people charged with spreading fake news about the war in Ukraine. The change to the criminal code, which seems designed to turn any independent reporter into a criminal purely by association, makes it impossible to continue any semblance of normal journalism inside the country, said Bloomberg Editor-in-Chief John Micklethwaite. A spokesperson for CNN said it would stop broadcasting in Russia while we continue to evaluate the situation and our next steps moving forward. The BBC suspended its own operations within the country earlier on Friday. Several websites, including BBC Russian, are no longer accessible within the country, nor are Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. And now for some sports news. Great news for Malaysian badminton, as the Badminton Association of Malaysia BAM has secured a whopping 45 million ringgit sponsorship after the national sports body inked a 3-year deal with Petronas Friday. This is the biggest deal for BAM since its establishment, signaling a great start for 2022. According to a source in the badminton fraternity, both parties have been negotiating for the last few months before agreeing to a 15 million ringgit a year deal for 3 years. With this deal in and Yonex on board, BM will not have any funding issues to worry about. Last year, April, Yonex and BM agreed to a 55 million ringgit deal for 5 years after the association ended its long-term relationship with Victor, a Taiwanese-based badminton manufacturer. To end the bulletin, here are the headlines again. It's official, Penang-Singapore VTL starts March 16. Ericsson asserts that it won the DNB 5G contract on merit. Grab loses US $22 billion since Nasdaq listing 3 months ago. Trailer catches fire on NKVE, causing 10-kilometer crawl. Ukraine leader rebukes NATO refusal on no-fly zone. CNN and Bloomberg to halt operations in Russia. And BM secures 45 million ringgit windfall in Petronas sponsorship deal. This has been the Gap News this morning, Saturday, 5th March. The Gap News is also available on the internet news portal Melaka Hari Ini. Podcasting live from Kuala Lumpur, I'm Ghazali Abdullah.